On yesterday's episode of Kawabana, we featured the Ni channel classic story of Ryomen Sukuna, the story shared back in 2005 that quickly went on to become a fan favourite. People still talk about it today, and many even credit the story with bringing about a surge in popularity for the mythological Ryomen Sukuna as well. Now, being Ni channel, the story was presented as a true story, something that really happened to the anonymous poster. Whether you choose to believe this right off the bat or not is up to you, but today we're going to take a look at what evidence is available out there and try to determine whether, yes, Ryomen Sukuna, as told of on Ni channel, could potentially have been a true story. Let's dig in. As I just mentioned, Ryomen Sukuna is an actual mythological figure. You can find him mentioned in the Nihon Shoki, the Chronicles of Japan, and he's described as having 4 arms, 4 legs, 2 heads but no neck. He's said to have lived during the 4th or 5th century, during the reign of Emperor Nintoku, and he's portrayed as a villainous character to go with his horrific form. Yet, in the Hida and Mino regions, modern-day Gifu Prefecture, Ryomen Sukuna was actually seen as a hero. Despite his monstrous visage, he was an Oni Slayer, and this is reflected in his name. The final kanji, Na, is a character that means to drive away evil spirits. He wasn't the bad guy, he slayed the bad guys. Just like his name, it seemed that Ryomen Sukuna had 2 sides to him, depending on who you spoke to. So that's the historical figure. But what about the one mentioned in the Ni channel story? If you haven't read it before, or you haven't yet listened to yesterday's episode, I recommend going and checking that out first, because that will help everything that's coming up make sense. In short, this Ryomen Sukuna is the mummy of a deformed child from the early Taisho period. This mummy was created by a cult through the method of Kodoku. Traditionally, Kodoku is a form of poisonous magic from Japanese folklore where a sorcerer would place a bunch of insects in a jar, then let them fight it out until only one remained. This insect was the winner, and thus the strongest of the bunch. This survivor could then be used to create a poison for someone you wish to kill, or, in some cases, kept and fed and used as a good luck charm. In Ryomen Sukuna's case, the Kodoku ritual was carried out with people and not insects. The cult gathered a bunch of, in their words, deformed people, locked them in a room, and the deformed child, believed to be conjoined twins, was the winner. If you really want to call them that. It's believed that the leader of the cult, Mononobe Tengoku, conspired to make sure that the conjoined twins would win because their visage reminded him of Ashura, a Buddhist demigod said to have 3 heads and 4 or 6 arms. After winning, the conjoined twins were immediately locked in a room and starved to death. The body was then embalmed and mummified and used to carry out the cult's plan. And what was that plan? Mononobe wished to destroy Japan. Why? The story mentions he filled Ryomen Sukuna's belly with bones of the ancients, a group of people that were destroyed by the Yamato, and therefore considered to be traitors to the nation of Japan. It's insinuated that the cult descends from these people, or at least believed them to be the rightful rulers of Japan. Either way, the cult founder, Mononobe, also not a full-blooded Japanese person, decided that now was the time to take revenge for them, and the cult used Ryomen Sukuna as an object of worship and travelled the country. Wherever they went, disaster soon followed. Several of these real-life disasters are listed in the tale, and it ends when Mononobe finally takes his own life the day before the Great Kanto earthquake. His final action is to write a message in his own blood. Japan must be destroyed. After that, the mummy of Ryomen Sukuna seemingly goes missing. At some point, he ends up in a sealed box at a temple in Iwate Prefecture, which is where the story begins, and several construction workers die simply by opening the box. It appears that at least one chief priest knew exactly who and what Ryomen Sukuna was, and by the time the box was opened at the start of the story, there were plans to move it to Kyoto that never got carried out because of a former priest's carelessness. Touching the mummy is guaranteed death, and even simply looking at it will greatly shorten one's lifespan. So, the Ryomen Sukuna curse is still in full effect, and the box must be protected at all costs. If not, then this great disaster that Mononobe was after, his hope to destroy Japan once and for all, might finally be carried out. This aspect of the story is somewhat similar to Kankandara, which came out several years later. The danger is moved around the country, and when the story finishes, you don't know where it might be. It could be at a temple near you, and just looking upon it will be enough to curse you. It's frightening, for sure. But is it real? Let's take a look at some of the disasters that Ryomen Sukuna is said to have caused, the only solid information we're given in the story. We're given a list of 8 disasters that took place in Japan from 1914 to 1923, starting with the Sakurajima eruption and ending with the Great Kanto earthquake. 5 of these are natural disasters, 2 are coal mine explosions, and 1 is a large-scale fire. There's obviously no way to prove one way or the other whether Ryomen Sukuna might have caused the natural disasters, so let's take a look at the others. First, 2 coal mine explosions are mentioned as being Ryomen Sukuna's work. The Hojo coal mine explosion of 1914 that killed 687, and the Kirino coal mine explosion of 1917 that killed 361. First thing to note is that coal mine explosions were sadly not rare in the early Taisho period. They happened quite frequently, and yes, many people often died. In the case of the Hojo mine, human error was to blame. It's believed that someone left the ventilation shaft open, which let out methane gas, and when a worker went down with his safety lamp, it caught fire and went boom. The cause of the Kirino mine explosion was never uncovered, but it was believed that the coal bed was full of dangerous locations that could have easily ignited and caused the massive explosion that killed 369 people. And then there's the Hakodate Fire of 1916. This is the only disaster the story doesn't give us a casualty number for, but over 1,700 buildings were burnt during this fire, so it's safe to assume there was quite a bit of damage. The problem with Ryomen Sukuna being the cause of this fire is that, well, Hakodate has been on fire a lot since the 1800s. The layout of the city, as well as its windy location, meant that whenever a small fire broke out, it usually didn't remain small for long, and the wind would swiftly carry it to nearby buildings that then led to much of the city going up in flames. Hakodate was on fire at least 2 other times during the Taisho period, numerous times in the Meiji period before it, and then yet another massive fire in the Showa period after. Hakodate burns easily. It doesn't really need Ryomen Sukuna's help. There's also one more interesting thing to note here. Something that makes it difficult to believe that Ryomen Sukuna could have been a real cursed mummy. The list of tragedies is a near exact copy and paste of a list of Taisho disasters from a website published several years before the story came out. The only addition is the Great Kanto earthquake at the end. And you can even see that the number of casualties and deaths after the Hakodate Fire is left blank, just like in the original source. So what does this mean? Well, it's likely that the list of disasters that Ryomen Sukuna supposedly caused is nothing but a copy and paste from the Nagaoka Red Cross page that was published several years earlier. This list was taken and injected into the story, not even modified, to add some authenticity to the tale. Japanese readers would no doubt immediately recognize most of these disasters, but if not, a quick search would bring up that, yes, this coal mine explosion really happened, and yes, this fire really took place during this particular year. If you were reading the story and on the fence about whether it might be true or not, finding out that these events were real events might help tip you over. Regardless of what you believe in, Ryomen Sukuna is undoubtedly just a story that took real Japanese mythology and real events from history and worked those into a terrifying tale of a curse so strong that it survived until modern times. And it could even be lurking somewhere near you right now. It's a well-crafted tale in many aspects, and many people even credit it with bringing the mythological figure into the limelight in modern times. But is it real? Not likely. But what do you guys think about this one? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time.